Hey guys, this is Mike from Woolly Bugged. I want to talk to you guys about waders today and a little bit about my experience with waders during 2016. Yesterday, as I was preparing to do this video, I thought back to how much fishing I did in 2016, and it turns out it was probably the most fly fishing / fishing I've ever done in my life in 1 year. Just to give you an idea, so if there's 52 weekends in a year, I guess that I did on average about 12 hours per weekend. So I was well over 500 hours for the year, even over 600 hours for the year. It was a lot of fly fishing. And the reason I bring that up is because I think it gives me some credibility in terms of talking about the way waders wear. When I go fly fishing, I'm not the type of guy who gets out of my truck, walks 50 yards to the stream, fishes like the first 2 holes close to the road, and then gets in my truck and leaves. I am typically doing a lot of walking, especially when it's like salmon or steelhead. I am walking like miles in a day. But even with trout, I'll cover a lot of water. I hate standing in one spot. Even when I'm catching fish, I like to catch fish and then get on the move and keep going. And so even in a standard trout fishing outing, I might walk a mile or two. And if you're walking streamside, you're guaranteed to be dealing with brush, jagger bushes, rocks, fallen trees. You're not just walking across a pristine grass field, standing on some stones along the bank, and everything's perfect and your waders always look great. Just the opposite for me. So I feel like I have some experience with the way waders wear, and this story covers the calendar year 2016, and during that time I had 4 pairs of waders that leaked on me. And that's hard to believe, but yeah, 4 pairs, and it goes back to right at the end of 2015. I had owned a pair of Simms G3 guide waders for 2 years, and to this day, the Simms G3 guide waders are the best waders, hands down, that I've ever owned. They weren't cheap, but they were super comfortable and breathable and just super durable, and they never leaked. They were just the best pair of fly fishing waders I ever owned. But at that time, the Rio Gallegos 2 fly fishing wader came out, and I have them here. This is the Rio Gallegos 2 wader from Patagonia that came out just a little over a year ago. And man, when I saw these things in the fly shop, they just they look really pretty, and I tried them on, and the fit was just amazing. The booties are super comfortable. Just everything about this wader from a design perspective was really sweet. They really knocked it out of the park. And kudos to Patagonia on the design of these waders from a visual aesthetic and a fit and comfort perspective. So I tried them on at the fly shop, and I was blown away by them. I was like, man, I have to get a pair of these. And I was like, maybe these guys actually started to step up their game. So during that time, I had a friend that was also looking for a pair of fly fishing waders. He was getting into the sport. And so probably against my better judgment, I sold my G3 Simms to my friend. And I bought these Rio Gallegos waders, and I started wearing them, and I was in love with these things for the first month or two. And then about 2 months in, I was on a trip up in New York, fishing the West Branch of the Delaware, East Branch of the Delaware, main stem, and I was doing some bank walking, and when you know it, one night I came back to camp, and there was a huge gaping thorn hole in the back of these waders. And I was shocked, because when you feel these Patagonia Rio Gallegos waders, they're kind of it's a heavier material. They actually feel heavier. These waders feel heavier than other waders I've owned, even than the Simms. And so I was surprised. But, I was in a bad spot. I was getting water in the wader. And so when I came back from that trip, you know, I packaged them up. Patagonia has a really easy to use, and it's a great customer service process. You know, you fill out a form, you send it back, $50 to send it to Reno, Nevada. And they had these waders for about 3 weeks, sent them back, and I'm not sure exactly what they did to them. I'm pretty sure they patched the hole, and they also may have done a change on the booties, I'm not sure. But after I got them back, I used them for about another month, and then wouldn't you know it, they started leaking in the legs, and I mean like really leaking. So down here, you know, on the lower half of the leg, there's a lot of seams where the booties connect. It started leaking. And I was on a trip when this happened, and I wasn't happy about it, but it was in the summer. I, you know, didn't have a choice. I needed to do something, so I went down to the West Branch Angler there, and they had a deal going on Patagonia waders, and I was like, geez, you know, I just had these leaking. But this deal they had going on the Rio Azules was really good, and I couldn't pass it up. So probably not my brightest moment in life, but I went ahead and bought a second pair of Patagonia waders in the Rio Azules. So this is the Rio Azules. And I bought these. They were nice and light at the time, so it was perfect for fishing, you know, in June on the Delaware. Wouldn't you know it, a couple months later, these things start leaking too. And when they leaked again, it wasn't because of a puncture issue. It was again almost in the exact same spot as on the Rio Gallegos. The Azules were leaking down here somewhere in the lower leg on the seams. So, you know, you're starting to see a trend here. When you're dealing with waders, the way that these manufacturers deal with the seams and the connections at the seams is so critical. And, you know, I don't really know if there's any way to, like, visually determine how good seams are on a pair of waders. I mean, you just need to get them and test them out and see if they work. But all I know is the Rio Gallegos, the Rio Azul, the seams started leaking. I still have not sent back either pair of these. They've just been sitting in my closet, and they leak. So after that happened, I had to go back. I had a backup pair of Simms Freestones. Now this is an older pair of Freestones, probably going back 3 or 4 years, but I had barely used these Freestones. So I went to these because I just needed something that was going to keep me dry, and I started fishing these. Now I have had these waders, you know, like I said, 3 or 4 years, and you know, they performed pretty well for maybe 4 or 5 months, but I got to the fall and I was up in New York doing some fishing for salmon on Lake Ontario, and in one of the tribs up there, and guess what? The Freestones leaked too, and I was super disappointed. This is more of an entry-level wader for Simms, but they leaked on me. Same thing, legs, seams, they leaked on me, and they were added to the pile. Now, I had an opportunity to get a really good deal on some Orvis waders. This is a pair of the Orvis Encounter waders. And, you know, when I tried these on, I was actually surprised for the price point. You know, this was actually probably the cheapest wader out of all 4 of these. I think they come in the $200 price range. And I was just impressed. Like, they looked pretty quality. They felt very comfortable. Very durable for the first, you know, I don't know, several months, but they also leaked. Again, the leaking is somewhere on the seam, in the crotch, down the leg. I just was so disappointed when this happened. And so I go back to, again, seams, durability, being able to walk through small brush, being able to step over logs. You know, like I said, when I'm out there walking, I'm not sitting in a stationary or standing in a stationary position. I'm putting my legs over logs. I'm walking through brush. Occasionally I might be brushing up against large boulders or something. When you're fishing Erie steelhead, you know, you might be walking through ice on occasion. You know, you need something that's really durable. And unfortunately, all 4 pairs of these waders did not last me, and the one theme, aside from the seams, is that all of these waders were in a lower price point. So if you look at waders and you want to break down the categories, at least with the brand names, you know, you have Simms up here in the top tier. They're like a $700 plus wader line. Very expensive if you go with their top line. So, you know, the G3s, the G4s, anything that have the zippers in them, you know, you're going to be well above $700. Just within the past several years, they've started also introducing these cheaper wader lines to their lineup, and that's where you get into the Freestones, etc. And they're all waders that are under the $500 mark, and you can see what that got me. The Patagonia waders are the $500 and lower. The Orvis are relatively lower priced, you know, middle to low range wader. You know, then you can get into the Reddingtons and the Frog Togs, and all of those kind of go down to much lower range. I can't speak to that. You also have the big box store brands like Cabela's. But all I can tell you is that in 12 months, I had 4 pairs of waders. They all leaked, some of them really quick, like within a couple of months of use. And to this day, the Simms G3 guide wader is still the best wader I've ever owned. I've heard good things about the G4, I just never owned a pair. But you know, when somebody says, why in the world would you spend $800 on a pair of waders? Well, guess what? This whole giant pile of waders, this is why you would spend $800 on a pair of Simms waders, because now I have all this. It's going to cost me at least $200 to send all those back and get them fixed. In the meantime, I have wet legs where I'm not fishing in waders. So folks, I don't want to badmouth people. I don't want to badmouth Patagonia. I don't want to badmouth Simms, but gosh, you know, can't somebody make a reasonably priced wader that's durable? I'm really curious to get everybody else's experience. If you guys get a chance to comment down below, I'm just curious to hear the type of experiences that other fly fishermen have had. Has anybody else dealt with this sort of thing? Of course, nobody else is probably crazy enough to buy 3 pairs of waders after the first pair is leaking and have them all leak. But anyways, I just wanted to share my experience with you. It is worth spending the $800. I would have saved some money if I would have just bought another pair of G3s or G4s. So unfortunately, I'm back to square one now. I need to evaluate my wader situation and figure out what I'm going to do. I might have to fish with wet feet for a couple outings until I either get a pair back or I decide to buy another pair of those G3s. But again, comment down below, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd like to hear what you guys have experienced, and thanks for watching and good luck fishing.